Hello everyone, my name is Luke Boulet and I'm PPA's Government Affairs Manager. In this program, we'll be talking about the ins and outs of using the Copyright Claims Board as a photographer. As a photographer, your livelihood is dependent on safeguarding your work, and it's a harsh reality that you must face when your work is infringed on. Luckily, there's a path available to get your work removed from unauthorized platforms, as well as receive financial compensation and resolve disputes. It's called the Copyright Claims Board. In this video, we'll be explaining what the Copyright Claims Board is and how it is different from pursuing a claim in federal court. We'll also be sharing these options and limitations that both of these forms have. The Copyright Claims Board, also referred to as the CCB, is an alternative forum to the federal court for resolving copyright disputes that are up to $30,000 in value. The CCB is also classified as a voluntary forum, where both parties agree to participate in the proceedings and they're not compelled by a court order or other type of legal requirement. Through the Copyright Claims Board, both parties agree to a specific process like mediation or arbitration to resolve the dispute. Resolving copyright disputes this way tends to result in a more efficient and cost-effective outcome compared to traditional court proceedings. And on the whole, this approach is less adversarial and more collaborative. Here are some other important things to know about the Copyright Claims Board. The CCB uses a limited discovery process. This type of process is more appealing to both parties generally, and because it's more efficient, it has a faster outcome. In this process, the photographer's case is presented to a panel of copyright experts who decide on its outcome. It's important to note that there's also a smaller claims option for photographers that are seeking damages that don't exceed $5,000. In a smaller claims process, the claims must be sought within 3 years when the copyright infringement took place. And last but not least, an important thing to note about the CCB is that your work must be registered with the Copyright Office in order for your claim to move past the pending stage. To learn more about the registration process, be sure to watch our videos on copyright registration for both published and unpublished photos. Alright, so you think you've been infringed. Here are the first 3 steps we recommend that you take. First, it's in your best interest to maintain a neutral and ideally non-aggressive relationship with the person who infringed your work. While it's not always possible, when you regulate your emotions and deal rationally with the infringer or client, you're going to reduce the likelihood of receiving negative PR or some other social media nightmare. The goal is to mitigate damage that could negatively impact your business. The next step is to communicate with your client assuming that they know nothing about copyright infringement. While it might not seem like it's your place to educate them on copyright law, building rapport will increase the likelihood that they will comply when you ask them to take down the images. The last step in this process is to ask your client to end the unauthorized display of your work. If the infringer isn't following your request, here's what should happen next. You'll need to submit a DMCA takedown notice in order to remove or disable access to your copyrighted material. You'll submit this notice to the internet service provider or website hosting company. PPA's online copyright infringement assistance tool will help you figure out the right DMCA notice to fill out. Again, this process is likely your best option for removing a digital image, and PPA makes this resource available to all members. It's possible the infringer will remove your image upon request, but in many of these cases, the photographer will still suffer from financial losses. These are losses that we think all photographers deserve compensation for. In these situations, we recommend that the photographer determines a suitable fee to charge the infringer. This fee should be based on the calculation that reflects an appropriate cost for the unauthorized use of the work. The photographer then needs to communicate the fee clearly to the infringer while emphasizing how it will resolve the issue. Encourage the infringer to think of the fee in terms of the solution it provides. By paying your fee, they'll be taking the easier course of action before you decide to take any further measures. Also, be sure to keep the communication formal. PPA has sample letters that are ready for your use, and we also encourage photographers to hold on to their mail receipt by sending a certified letter. The Copyright Claims Board and the federal court have vital roles in addressing copyright infringement cases. When the infringement is serious, legal action is the only way to receive compensation. If you decide to move forward with pursuing legal action, it is a good idea to reach out to your local and state bar associations for help finding an attorney. Ideally, you're going to look for someone who specializes in intellectual property and is located in your state. You have the right to seek legal help from an attorney to pursue a claim through federal court. While it is not required under the CCB, it is highly recommended to have a legal counsel for all cases of copyright infringement. You also need to understand how the timing of your copyright registration affects the potential recovery of damages and fees in a lawsuit. We cover this in our videos on how to register published and unpublished photographs. Here's a short wrap-up of how to pursue a claim through the Copyright Claims Board. Filing a claim is relatively cheap. You'll pay a $40 filing fee, and when your claim is accepted, then you'll pay a $60 remainder plus a server cost. While your work is not required to be registered when you file, your claim will be pending until the registration is finalized. So you can go ahead and file your claim with the CCB and register your work at the same time. While the CCB does not require a lawyer, in certain cases it is wise to get one. The Copyright Claims Board also uses the limited discovery process. It is appealing to both parties because it is a more efficient process and it yields a faster outcome. Lastly, if a party decides to opt out of the process, you can still file a claim through federal court. Here's a short explanation of what to expect if you decide to pursue a claim through federal court. To begin, a little backstory. The American Bar Association estimates it costs claimants on average $397,000 to bring a copyright case to fruition in federal court. This is in part due to the discovery process, which can be very costly and time-consuming. It's important to note that the actual damages, profits to the infringer, and statutory damages may be sought in this claims process. Another thing to note about federal court relates to the registration and publication of your work. Works that are registered prior to the infringement stand a better chance of receiving damages defined in law. While on the other hand, when a work is registered after the infringement takes place, damages must be supported. In the case your work is not registered prior to the infringement, it is best to register the work as soon as possible, because registration is required before fully accessing the CCB or federal court. Finally, as a general rule, it's best to have your images registered prior to delivering them to your client. In order to file them in federal court, your images must be registered beforehand. You'll also need a lawyer to pursue your claim. Understanding the options and limitations of both the Copyright Claims Board and the federal court system is important to photographers who are looking to resolve disputes related to copyright infringement. Resolving disputes like these requires the help of someone who specializes in copyright law. Remember, you're a photographer, not a lawyer. PPA members have access to resources and support that will help you every step of the way. Don't try to navigate this alone. Learn more about the invaluable resources and support you have access to.